the Grouchy Nerd.
Alright, quiet down, knuckleheads. I'm still stuck in this closet, but the new release train keeps a rolling, so it's time to look at another new hero for Fantasy Flight Games Marvel Champions. This time we're looking at Ironheart. No, that's Braveheart, the bravest of the Care Bear friends. I mean, I don't know what that is. That's a brand new image to me. Chicago native Riri Williams is a super genius who first caught the attention of Tony Stark when at the age of 15 she successfully reverse-engineered an Iron Man suit of her very own. So impressed with her abilities, in fact, that Tony gave her the use of an artificial intelligence based on his own brainwaves, though she eventually ditched the Tony AI for one she designed herself in her lab at MIT, a lab that Blade helped set up, of all people. Vampires. Since then, she's worked with Tony to help save Stark Industries, briefly became the Queen of Latveria, she abdicated, joined the Champions, and when the Champions went to space to help Nova for a mission, she took on Thanos by herself. It did not go well for her. So let's take a look at her. First up, we have 3 identity cards. Ironheart versions 1, 2, and 3. So no matter what, she has the champion trait, 2 attack, 3 defense, and 10 hit points. Version 1 has 1 thwart and a hand size of 4. Version 2 gets 2 thwart and 5 cards in hand. And version 3 thwarts for 3 and gets a hand size of 6. Versions 2 and 3 also gain aerial. For an action on version 1, you can discard 6 progress counters to ready and switch to version 2. On version 2, you can discard 6 progress counters to ready, switch to version 3, and gain a tough status. And on version 3, you can still discard progress counters to do 2 damage each. So this is obviously brand new. We've had other ways to upgrade your character. This one is going to literally physically upgrade as you play the game. You start out in the clunky, garage-made version of the suit, and eventually get her most sophisticated, advanced suit, and it's like way more advanced. You get 2 more cards in hand, aerial, and you have that ability to do 2 damage with the progress counters, as well as 3 thwart. Alright, so how do you get those progress counters? Well, I am so glad I pretended you asked. Follow me to the alter ego side. Sides, there's still 3. Riri Williams gets a recovery of 3, hand size of 6, and the Genius trait. All versions have Child Prodigy, her signature ability, which upgrades as your suits do. At first, you can generate a progress counter by paying a mental resource on version 1. Version 2 allows you to pay 1 mental resource or any other 2 resources, and version 3 will generate a progress counter for spending any 1 resource. Limit all once per round. Don't worry, there are other ways to generate progress counters. You're not going to need to use this alter ego ability 12 times over 12 separate rounds. That would never do. But it is really cool the way her alter ego ability is going to upgrade right along with her heroic ability. It's going to be easier for her to make progress the more advanced she is and the more advanced her suit is. Pretty cool. First up in her kit is signature ally Brawn, played by Amadeus Cho. He costs 4 with 3 hit points, 2 thwart, and 3 attack. And then when he's exhausted, you can once per round generate a mental resource. Now, we've already seen the aggression version of Amadeus Cho's Brawn, which is it's a fine card, but this card for Ironheart is so good. He generates the kind of resource you want to be seeing the very most much. That's such a cool thing to have on your signature ally. I want more allies that generate resources. That's amazing. Then we've got 2 copies of Fly Over, a 2-cost thwart event. As a hero action, remove 3 threat from a scheme and get a progress counter, or 2 counters if it was the last threat on the scheme. This one's really good in solo. You don't have to worry about the threat multiplication from all those other people. And taking 3 threat off of a scheme and having that be the last threat on that scheme is very, very doable to get those 2 progress counters. I like this card a lot. Then 3 copies of the attack version, Photon Beam. 2 cost for a hero action, deal 4 damage to an enemy and get a progress counter, or 2 if you defeated the enemy with that attack. 4 is a nice, solid punch of damage. It is probably less likely that you're going to get 2 progress counters off of this unless you have a minion-heavy encounter you're doing. But even the 1 progress counter, just for giving the villain a nice punch. Yeah, really good. All the progress counters that you can possibly get, particularly early on, just try to get them. Just get them, get to 12 as fast as possible so that you can get into your version 3 suit and really start doing some damage. Next is 2 copies of 3-cost New and Improved, an event with the skill trait. Choose X different options, where X is your identity's version number. You can search your deck for a hero card and put it into your hand. Give Ironheart a Tough or Ready Ironheart. Yeah, another one that gets better as you do. At version 1, you can choose any one of them. At version 2, you're going to be getting 2 of them. If you choose to Ready and get a Tough, that's very powerful. At version 3, you get to do all 3 of them for 3 costs. You really want to get all those progress counters as fast as possible so you can play with this card. Do note, though, that you're only searching your deck for that card, and it has to be an Ironheart card. So pay attention to the cards that you have out, and remember, you can always look through your discard pile to make sure that there is at least a card in your deck before you choose that option. Otherwise, it just whiffs. Another card that increases in value, but this time by decreasing in cost, is Sector Scan, which costs 3, but reduce that cost by Ironheart's version number. Until the end of the round, you may look at the top card of the encounter deck. So it costs 3, but it really will only ever cost 2, and eventually it's going to be free, and that's when it finally gets to the point where you might want to play it. Being able to see what boost cards you have coming your way and deciding whether or not you need to defend or use an event, something like that, is very, very useful, but I don't know that I want to spend anything on that ability just for one round. Even the 0 is kind of using a resource that you could be spending on another card in your hand. I didn't find myself using it very often. But then we have Stroke of Genius, a signature resource card. After you spend this card, gain a progress counter and draw a card. And the resource it generates is a mental resource. So if you're in Alter Ego and you use this card to trigger Child Prodigy, you're going to get 2 progress counters and draw a card. I'm into that. I'm into all of that. Then we have our requisite parental support card, Ronnie Williams, who costs 1 and has the Persona trait. As an Alter Ego action, exhaust Ronnie to either heal 2 damage from Riri or place 1 progress counter on her. Now, 10 hit points and 3 defense, Ironheart's pretty beefy. She doesn't necessarily need heals very often, but man, it's really nice to have him out. And if you are dipping down to Alter Ego and you are trying to get as many progress counters on yourself as you can, this is also a really nice way just to pop one on. Next up is the Tony Stark AI, a 2-cost Persona support. As an action, exhaust Tony Stark AI to look at the top 2 cards of your deck, add 1 to your hand, and discard the other. Always great to be able to draw an extra card. Always great to have an option on which card you're gonna take. Super sucko to have to discard the other one, though, because what if you draw 2 really good cards, or you draw a card that would have been awesome for next time? I want to put it back. Can I put it back, Tony? Just 1 copy of a 2-cost upgrade with tech and weapon traits. Photon Blasters gives you +2 to your hit points, and you can exhaust it as a hero action to deal damage to an enemy equal to your suit's version number. A good card that becomes a great card that becomes an amazing card. To be able to just do 3 blasts of damage just for exhausting a card that you already have out that's giving you 2 hit points. Last in her kit is Propulsion Jets, another 2-cost upgrade, this one with just the tech trait. It, too, gives Ironheart +2 to her hit points, and as a hero action, you can exhaust it to remove threat from a scheme equal to Ironheart's version number. So with both of these out, you're going to be hitting up to 14 hit points, and really it punctuates how quickly you want to get that suit up to its fullest potential, because you have these out, and that's 3 damage and 3 threat that doesn't exhaust you, that doesn't cost any resources. They're just there every turn, plus the hit points. This is a great hero deck. The bad stuff. Ironheart's obligation is a minor setback. Remove 1 progress counter from your identity, then discard this obligation. If you don't have a progress counter to discard, you get a new face-down encounter card, and a minor setback gets shuffled back into the encounter deck. Yes. There's no removing this one from the game. It's just going to keep coming back and sucking over and over again. Rule by Force is Ironheart's nemesis side scheme. It comes with 4 threat and has either a hazard icon or an acceleration icon, depending on whether or not Ironheart's nemesis Lucia van Bardos is in play. That is a Latvian accent. So yeah, everything about that sucks. The maximum that your propulsion jets can take off is 3. This one comes in at 4. That feels intentional. That feels very intentional. I do like the design of it. I like that it does a different thing whether or not your minion or your nemesis minion is in play, but both of the things that it does, whether or not your nemesis minion is in play, are not things I like. So let's move on to the lady herself. Lucia van Bardas. Again, that is a flawless Latvian accent. She's got 4 hit points, but only does 2 scheme and 1 attack, so you know her ability is going to be gross. She has criminal, cyborg, and elite traits. While she has a tough status, she gains +1 to her scheme and her attack. After the villain phase ends, give her a tough status card. There it is. So assuming she comes out of the encounter deck because you drew her as your encounter card, or you drew Shadow of the Past and that brought her into play right at the end of the enemy phase, there's a pretty solid chance she's going to get at least 1 tough status on her before you're ever able to even try to deal with her. If you're not able to get rid of her in 1 turn, then she's going to get a tough status again, and you're going to have to clear that again before you can do any damage to her. That's annoying. That's annoying. 1 copy of Cyborg Tech, an attachment with the tech trait, will attach itself to the minion with the most traits. Lucia had 3, so it's most likely to go on her if she's out. If there is no minion for it to attach itself to, it's going to gain Surge. The minion in question will get +1 to their attack and +3 to their hit points plus Retaliate. And if you draw it as a boost card, it becomes your next encounter card. Getting this on Lucia gets her hit points up to 7 plus Retaliate, so you're going to have to hit her a bunch of times and get hit back. And she has that tough status. If you are not able to take her out in 1 round, she's going to be tough again by the beginning of the next round. Political Retribution is next. If Lucia van Bardos is in play, she schemes. If Rule by Force is in play, it gets 3 threat. If both are in play, both things happen. If neither are in play, it gains Surge. Not great. Not great. That's up to 6 threat. Just... Moving on to her aspect cards, Ironheart came with the leadership aspect. Up first is Cloudnine, played by Abby Boylan, who costs 3 for 3 hit points and 1 thwart and 1 attack. She has the aerial and champion traits. As a hero action, exhaust Cloudnine to choose a player. Each aerial character that player controls gets +1 thwart, and it doesn't damage her to use that ability, so she can come out and you just put her off in the corner and just always use her for that and never use her to defend. You always have that ability to call on. Then a new Falcon comes to play, Joaquin Torres. A 4-cost ally with 3 hit points, aerial and champion traits, 1 thwart and 2 attack. After Falcon attacks or thwarts, you may spend an energy resource to ready another champion character you control. Like, you know, you. Yeah, it's really good. Our next new leadership ally is Patriot, played by Rayshawn Lucas. He costs 3 for 4 hit points, 2 thwart with 2 consequential damage and 1 attack, and he has the champion trait. When he enters play, you may hero respond by choosing a champion character and giving it, probably you, +1 to each basic power until the end of the round. That gets Ironheart's final form at a 4/3/4. Okay, so now remember both of these cards as we look at the next card. Both of these allies, keep them in mind. We've got Falcon, who can ready you, and we've got Patriot, who can add 1 to each of your stats. Keep those in mind. As we look at 3 copies of a 2-cost attack event, though it does require one of those resources to be an energy resource. Go all out. Exhaust your hero to deal damage to an enemy equal to the total of your hero's thwart, attack, and defend. That's crazy. Natively, just by herself, Ironheart gets her final form. Her stats are up to 8 on this. If Patriot is out, giving her a boost to that, that's going to get her up to 11 damage from this 1 card. And in solo, that's going to be almost an entire version of most villains. 8 or 11 damage, that's going to take almost everybody to at least halfway. Push Ahead is the way less useful thwart version. This one costs 3 with a mental requirement. Exhaust your hero to remove threat equal to your total thwart, attack, and defense. So leadership already allows you to spend some time in Alter Ego without having to worry too much about the threat building up, because you're going to have allies to kind of deal with that. So I'm not as crazy about this card. I'm sure when you're playing 3 or 4 player, maybe even 2 player, the threat can really get out of hand, and being able to take off 8 to 11 threat in one fell swoop is amazing. I just don't think it comes up that much in solo. Probably not going to use this card that much. But if you need it, I'm sure it's awesome. 3 copies of R&D Facility is next. It's a support with the location and shield traits. It costs 3, but 2 of those must be mental resources. It gets 3 research counters, and for a hero action, you can exhaust it and remove a counter to give a friendly character +1 thwart and +1 attack until the end of the phase. 2 mental resources is no sweat for Ironheart. Really good going into those turns that you do want to use Go All Out, because it's going to add another 2 to that attack. Or if you just want to get her final form up to 4 thwart and 3 attack. Or if you want to bring out an ally like the Miles Morales Spider-Man who can already boost one of those stats when he first comes out, you can use this to boost it even further and make that one hit or that one thwart really, really powerful. Snowguard, as played by Amka Aliak, is a 4-cost basic support with a champion trait and 3 hit points, but zeros in thwart and attack. After Snowguard enters play, place up to 3 shift counters on her to get a different version of her. 1 counter gets her +3 attack and overkill, 2 counters gets her +3 thwart and aerial, or 3 counters will give her +5 to her hit points with retaliate. That's cool. That's cool. The 4 resources is maybe a bit much, but to be able to have an ally who can be a different version, whatever you need right then, if you need a big hit, or if you need some thwarting, or if you just want somebody to be a wall for you for a few turns. Yeah, that's really cool. Next up is a basic version of Vivian coming in at 2 cost. She'll do 2 thwart with 2 consequential damage, 1 attack with 1 consequential damage, 2 hit points, aerial, android, and champion traits. And if you play her as a hero, you may choose an attachment, non-elite minion, or non-permanent side scheme and treat it as if its text box was blank, except for traits, for the rest of the round. So that turns off guard, it turns off patrol, it turns off retaliate. Any connection between a side scheme and a nemesis minion, that's gone. Then go for champions, a 3-cost basic event that you can only play if you have the champion trait, and there's a max of 1 per deck. Each champion in play cannot take damage until the end of the round. This is certain to make for some disgustingly broken rounds, especially if you're in multiplayer, multi-handed, and everybody's a champion, and you just have a whole round where nobody can take any damage. That's pretty cool, although it is worth noting that if somebody's playing Nova and you want to use Miss Marvel, his version of Miss Marvel's ability to bounce a card back into your hand, she does have to take damage as part of the cost of that ability. So this card in play would keep you from being able to use that ability. 3 copies of Ingenuity, though you can only actually have 1 in play per player. It's a basic upgrade that costs 2, and you can only play it if you have the Genius trait. Exhaust it to generate a mental resource. So that Genius trait requirement is just to play it, not to use it. So you can play it in Alter Ego, but then still use it as a hero, which brings me to my next point, that this is an amazing card for our friend Hulk. Yeah, Dr. Banner is a genius. Hulk has some hand size problems. This is a really cheap way to get a extra resource just around, which will help so much with that stupid 4-card hand size. Really cool card. Great in Ironheart as well, but I think it's really going to turn Hulk around. No, he's still bad. Then we have an aggression ally next, a 4-cost and 3 hit point Bombshell in the style of Lana Baumgartner. It does 2 thwart with 2 consequential damage and 3 attack with 1 consequential damage. She has the champion trait, and you can only play her if you do too, and she has a condition on that 3 attack. Divide damage from Bombshell's attack among all enemies as evenly as possible. So she can do 9 damage if you attack with her 3 times, though that 9 damage might not necessarily go exactly where you want it to go, making the 4 cost fine, I guess. Then we've got a Justice Ally version of Wasp, played by Nadia Van Dyne, who costs 2 with 3 hit points. She does 2 thwart with 2 consequential damage and 1 attack. She's a champion, and so must you be to play her. Wasp ignores Guard, Patrol, and the Crisis icon. Guard, Patrol, and the Crisis icon are, to me, among the most annoying things in this game, so to have an ally that can just ignore them while she's going to pull threat off of the main scheme to keep you going, keep that thing from flipping over, that's really, really good. Last up is Pinpoint, as played by Qureshi Gupta. This protection ally also has and requires the champion trait, costs 2 resources, has 2 hit points, does 1 thwart and 2 attack with 2 consequential damage on that attack. When a player card would be placed into a discard pile from play, exhaust Pinpoint to shuffle that card back into its owner's deck. That's any player card. Doesn't have to be one of your hero cards, it doesn't have to be an aspect card, it can be anything. So Leadership, which of course she came with, and Justice will be the 2 aspects that allow her to spend as much time in Alter Ego as she can early game to get as many progression counters on her as she can so that she can get into version 3 as fast as possible. But that's not to say that aggression and protection aren't also great for her, because they are. She's got 3 defense, so protection is a natural fit. Hone Technique, which we just saw in the Nova pack, in her is really good. So Hone Technique gives you bonuses. You get the bonus of the cost in damage if you used a mental resource to pay for the attack event. She's going to have mental resources. She's got mental resources falling out of her pockets. She's fun. Ironheart is fun. Even though she's from Chicago, though I did look through a bunch of her books and there's no mention of her being a Cubs fan. So I think we're fine. Alright, well that's Ironheart and I'm still in a closet. Get off my lawn. The Grouchy Nerd